cards, my girl. Leave no stitch unturned, 'cause it's the society sorts from up west that the girls from the East End want to look like. It's pictures of their wedding gowns in the Daily Sketch they'll be bringing in for us to copy." After a brusque examination of Kitty's hands and nails, Gladys had dismissed her with orders to start at 9 a.m. prompt, the first Monday morning after the new school term began. A sudden burst of hand-clapping and the distant thud of horses' hooves brought Kitty back from her wonderings. "I say, there she is!" called out an excited voice. "God bless you, Nancy!" Applause and cheers rang out, and the crowd stirred into life. The dressmaker gasped and dropped her pencil. A small space opened up in the crowd as she bent to retrieve it. Seizing her chance, Kitty wriggled through the sea of stockinged legs and found herself at the very front. She opened her eyes wide, then wider still, and just like that, her grumbling tummy and frozen feet were forgotten. For gliding down the flagstones on the arm of her father was the bride, and what a marvellous bride was she! Nancy emerged dreamlike from the snow, a tiny ethereal vision in a long sweep of buttery silk, its diaphanous overskirt shimmering with silver embroidery and hundreds of tiny pearls. In her pale fingers she clutched a spray of chalk-white flowers. Kitty gazed in wonderment, for Nancy looked like no other woman she'd ever seen, a perfect china shepherdess, her brown eyes large and liquid, her lips full and rosy. Atop her gleaming curls, tiny white flowers and a dusting of snow. In her wake, 2 page boys in white satin breeches and tails, holding the train as if it were made of glass. In the swirling snow, looking like they'd stepped straight from the pages of a children's fairy tale, they drew a collective sigh from the crowd of admiring matrons. And then came the bridesmaids, tall, slender and serene, in white tulle and taffeta. Kitty counted 7, no, wait, 8 of them. And oh, how dreamy, how utterly dreamy! As they slid past like a bevy of swans, she realized they were all connected by a long continuous garland smothered in snowdrops, which looped from one maid to the next like a maypole. Everywhere Kitty looked there was light, snow-white blossom, encircling slender waists and trailing over shoulders. Kitty felt her heart turn over. It was a performance, a thrilling, spectacular show with a snow queen its star. She sighed deeply. If the walk to the church door could be this glamorous, Kitty could only guess how heavenly the interior of the church must look, how dashing the groom, how regal the guests, to what impossible height the ceiling must soar. The bride was drawing closer now, so close Kitty could almost reach out and touch the hem of her ermine-trimmed gown. Instead, she gazed up at her with shining eyes and realized she was holding her breath. "Please, look at me, Kitty from Bethnal Green. Notice me." But the Snow Queen bride passed on by, poised and unreadable, leaving in her wake a scented trail of allure. Kitty sagged and scuffed the toe of her boot on the ground. Who was she fooling? Girls like Nancy were born to glide on marble floors bedecked with roses. Girls like her were consigned to watch them from the damp darkness of the crowd, anonymous and unseen. But as the bride reached the church porch, something magical happened. She turned, flickered those large dark eyes over the crowd, and settled on Kitty. A whisper of a smile, the flash of a diamond as she raised her hand. And then she was gone, stepping into the church, off to meet her glittering future, leaving Kitty as pale and faint as the January sky. Nothing could ever come close to the lavish romantic dream Kitty had witnessed. As the crowd dispersed, and she reluctantly began the long walk back to the narrow streets of the East End, Kitty made a vow in her secret heart. She wouldn't just be the wedding seamstress. One day she would be the bride.